Yeah, so Mike, so at this point in your life, you're 27 years old. You understand that now you're a founder of, I think it's LCI Telecom. Tell me
I was
how.
not a founder. I was an early employee at LCI.
Okay.
Yep.
Tell me your idea around the whole business. What was sort of innovative in the in the telecom sector
So,
as a whole?
frankly, telecom, it was just the fact that they were wading into the telecom. And I'll back up even further. Before I took the LCI job, I talked to one of the top VCs. It was got a relationship that somehow, I can't even remember how I got him in touch with them. One of the venture capitalists, Columbia Capital, which is, I don't know if they're active right now, but they were huge in telecom. They funded most of the big deals and had huge exits. One of the principals there was honestly only a few years older than me. Said, don't worry about salary. Just don't worry about how much you're getting paid. Get into the earliest rawest opportunity you can possibly get into, and if that one doesn't work out in 2 years, you'll have another one that's going to work out. And this is a guy that actually started out as an analyst at like 25, 26 years old, and 2 years later was a CFO of a company that they sold for like $500 million, something ridiculous even at the time. So his advice was forget about salary, don't worry about safety, just get enough opportunities strung together and you're going to hit it big once, then you'll have enough money to do whatever what the hell you want. I didn't take that advice with LCI. LCI was, again, I was a little bit risk averse, I think, not as, because I didn't have much money in the bank. So I did that, and I thought it was a good thread the needle type thing again, where it was pretty startup-y, but it wasn't like I knew I'd have a job and get a paycheck. It just wasn't as much as I could have gotten elsewhere. But what it did do is it exposed me to some really successful entrepreneurs, and I met two partners there that we did have an idea that was kind of a spinoff of LCI, where we're basically doing their business, but we were going to carve off, because customer acquisition costs are huge in the telecom business. And even today, Verizon, AT&T will pay, $500 to get a customer through marketing. Same thing was true back then. These long distance and local companies were paying a fortune to get a customer, and they were betting that those customers stayed long enough to make them profitable. So we had this idea that what if we took that acquisition cost and lower and we kind of reallocate it to a charity. So we go find people who want to focus on, autism wasn't was prevalent back then, but we had there was a Ducks Unlimited, people who love ducks and nature conservancy, people that really want to support those, and we would partner with those companies, and then a percentage of their bill would go to support, like 10% of their bill would get us support that. People generally like the concept, but and when we were kind of validating it, so I had two other partners there. As soon as LCI was sold, we poured all of our money into that and raised a couple $100,000 from outside money and started this business. And it was called Community Reach. And we just went out and beat the bushes and found these nonprofits that we thought could partner with us, and they would do the marketing for us. We would provide the service. And instead of us paying, at the time, $50, $75 of marketing up front to get a customer, we would basically pay a percentage of the revenue to the our partner, but we'd get kind of free customers to start out with. That was our bet. Unfortunately, it didn't work. I mean, it just, like, we raised all this money, and I kind of joked that we might as well have lit it on fire. I mean, we were out of money in like 6 months. We kind of felt like, I think we were starting.
Mike,
Yeah.
how much money did you have, and how did it feel to have that much money at your age?
So I mean, candidly, I had, it was like $150,000 of what I made out of that deal, which was a fortune to me. Like, I mean, inconceivable. I thought I was done. I mean, it was like, I was like, oh, I could park this and I had very simple means at the time. And I didn't, like I said, I never came from a lot of money. So I lost all of that, all of it. And my partners, who one of them even had a little bit more on the exit than I did, he put a little more and he lost that. Fortunately for him, he was smart enough to hold some of it back. But we also raised some money from outside investors, and they, so it was a big exit for me at the time. I'll tell you now, if you get into a startup and you get to the right startup, those are completely feasible numbers. I mean, not even if you're at a unicorn and you're employee number 50 at Uber, that my 150 would have been millions. But there are a lot of those kind of base hit type opportunities that come out there that actually can put a little cash in your pocket, early on. I wouldn't bet on it because odds are it's not going to happen, but when it does, it feels pretty good. But that was my first big risk. Was like I went all in. We had so much conviction on it, and we lost everything. Basically, lost everything. And I had also gotten married at the time, and my in-laws were loving the fact that their daughter married this guy who basically, as soon as he got married, was put all of his money into this crazy business that they didn't understand, and she was effectively supporting me on her nonprofit salary. So that was a kind of an interesting time in my life. But so anyway, we blew through that. The investors were, I mean, I felt horribly guilty. I hated the fact that I hated myself for losing the money, and I was really felt guilt ridden for the investors. Uh, and the investors were very, matter of fact about it. Like, but we thought we could do better. And we started raising a little bit more money, and they said, no, you tested it, it didn't work. Second best thing to hitting it really big is a fast fail. The worst thing you can get into is a long drawn out. Hey, we think we just need 500,000. If only we had $500,000 more, we were just starting to turn the corner, and we think we could get it. And their view was, no, we did it. It's fine. We're good with the loss. We're not going to put any more, and you guys shouldn't waste your time or money doing it either. And that was great advice. And again, they didn't care as much as I cared about losing their money. But that I credit one of my partners who had access to people that, again, my mindset of what a lot of money was, I mean, the amount of money that some of these investors put in was probably the equivalent of me going to, eating at, Applebee's or something. It was just like it was a nice night out, not even a nice night out with them. It was like an expensive lunch, and it was like all the money I had. So that was the first time I realized there are people who have a lot of money, but part of the reason they had a lot of money is they could make shrewd investments, and they made a shrewd investment with us by not investing anymore. So yeah, so that was my first big fail, and that happened pretty early in my life.
But what happened next ended up being a huge success, right? Working with Verizon.
Yeah. So the next thing was, as a result of this, what happened, the other good thing about working for a startup is if you're working in a corporation, you're internally focused. All of your relationships that you build, most of them, are with other people that work for your company for the most part, unless you're in a sales role. But if you're in anything but a sales role, your relationships are kind of, like they're the people you work with. If you're doing a startup, you often tend to get into, and you're trying to figure stuff out and you're founding it, you're talking to everybody. You build a great network. Like, you just meet people just for trying to figure your business out. And then and it's those great relationships that give you a high probability of kind of coming into up with an accidental kind of idea or opportunity. And that's sort of what happened with me. It was people that I had worked with previously at LCI that had done something else. We got together and we started to see an opportunity in rural telecom. So at the time, again, when I talked about this disruption in the telecom business, one of the things that we really taken advantage of was the fact that rural markets had no access to high-speed data. Like, they had dial-up, and that was it. And the government was really pushing money into these rural communities to close what they called the digital divide. And so we had a plan to go basically raise some money, get some of this government funding, and buy some sleepy old telephone companies, like a few hundred customers, and take the government money, upgrade them, and then we increase the revenue, and we buy enough of those, we have a platform that we could sell. That was our idea. And we were thinking, maybe we raised $10 million, maybe we raised 20, maybe this is a $50 million business if we're really like crazy successful. And what happened, again, talk about these accidental sort of happenings as you're building your business out. What happened is we found our way into Verizon was selling all of their rural lines, like hundreds of thousands of them. And we just kind of happened to be there. We kind of happened to know a lot about this rural market, how to navigate the regulatory environment. And we shot our way into an auction. And actually, it was this VC, the guy that told me, go take the riskiest job that you can find, which I didn't completely take his advice. His firm actually gave us they said, we're in no way going to invest in this. This isn't the right type of thing. This is a nickel shaving business, and you're going to have to make your money by being frugal, and we just don't like those businesses. We like businesses where you can really screw up and still do okay. But we went ahead anyway with that. He said, but we will give you a letter to say, we think this is highly, we're interested. We would consider doing this, and we think this is a highly financeable business. And they just had enough credibility that we shot our way into the auction. And sure enough, we won. We won the rights to buy 500,000 assets, and it ended up being over $1 billion deal that we had no way to get money from.
$1 billion. $1 billion.
It ended up being $1 billion was what the price tag was, and we were totally faking it. It's crazy how we got we were the dog, the proverbial dog that caught the car, right? Like, no way are they going to sell this thing to us. And there's a little bit more than that. We did politic a lot. Like, we found the political buttons, and we talked to the politicians and people with influence in the states, and we basically sold them on the fact that we're going to come in and we're going to like really close the digital divide. We're going to upgrade these. We're not just going to go try to take every nickel out of the business. We're going to use this as a platform to provide broadband to rural markets. And they really loved our story, so they were rooting for us, and they helped get us the bid, but then we had to buy it, and we had no money. So that was the challenge. So, but we never thought we'd be there. We really didn't. I mean, we were really kind of learning this market, and we were staying weeks ahead of people sometimes. We knew about a week's more than some of our investors did, but they didn't know that.
So down the line, you got to meet with Paul Quealy. So tell me how.
I never met with Paul. I never met with Paul Quealy. The story there is, I think he started at Welsh Carson. So with his firm was ultimately the business, the firm that invested in us. Paul was a pretty young partner. I think he's only a few years older. I'm 52. I think he's not that much older. I mean, he's got at least a few zeros more in his net worth, I would say. But he was a young guy then, and they had a lot of young partners. But I'm sure he was on the investment committee looking at this deal, but he wasn't involved in the deal. We worked with another guy that's running the firm now, Tony DeNicola, which is a friend and partner of Paul's. But his firm, we approached their firm, and they were really interested in it. They actually had looked for an investment opportunity in this sector, and they at least pretended to like us and trust us enough, even though I was a late 20s kid. They didn't say at the time, but it was pretty clear they're not going to trust me to. I mean, it was kind of the finance guy. They weren't going to let me be their CFO for their $1 billion investment, but they were pretty polite about it initially. But what they did ask for is a term sheet. And they said, well, okay, give us your terms. And we had no idea what a term sheet was. I mean, Google didn't exist back then. It's not like we could say, Google, what's a term sheet, get and then kind of figure it out as you would now. So we were scrambling around asking for, lawyers to give us free work, and we kind of cobbled one together. And we ended up striking a deal with Welsh Carson as the lead investor. There were a few other investors in it, but they were the lead. And they were a good firm. They were really high integrity. They were supportive. They backed the deal. We won it. We closed it. They made it pretty clear as we were closing it that we appreciate all the work that you guys did, and you guys have a senior management role and you will always be founders, but we need to bring in some adults to run this business because you guys are nice people and you seem like kind of what you're doing a little bit, but we're not going to trust $1 billion to people, to you guys. So that was pretty clear. That's the difference with raising a lot of money that quickly versus if we had raised $10 or $15 million, the backer would probably have trusted us. I mean, it's just a lot of businesses now are run by 20, 30 somethings, right? This business, I mean, even today, we wouldn't have passed it. They did hire some adults to run it.